The Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome to the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss, and with me today, I've got my RCI Invitational tournament partner with me, a good friend of mine, Captain Lewis from Amplifly Charters. Dude, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. So you are a full-time guide as well as a full-time firefighter, juggling just like I do. You're a family man, you've got kids, you got a boy who's just a year older than mine. So we've got a lot of things going on, a lot of similarities. But tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about your fishing charters. How did you get into fishing? Where do you fish?
Well, I grew up here in Brevard County, east coast of Central Florida. Grew up fishing Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River Lagoon, Banana River. Even from a very young age, my dad would take me to Mosquito Lagoon and we'd sight fish, redfish. And some of my earliest memories are on the lagoon. So I guide there and I guide down south in Banana as well. I kind of got all over wherever the fish are chewing, so to speak. That's kind of typically where I go and try to target for my clients.
Yeah, man. Same thing. We got in the same area, and you said it. You move around. We have to move
Yep.
around. I feel like I was just filming down in South Florida. We were in Pine Island Sound, Fort Myers area, and it was a Monday, and there was boats everywhere. People were fishing everywhere, and I feel like there's very few days off for these fish. So as a result, we're moving around. We're covering a lot of water.
Absolutely.
People, my
Yeah.
charters call me and, hey, our charter's in a week. Where are we going? I'm like, I don't know yet. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm going to wait. A few things come into play. What's the wind going to do? Where have I been? Where have the fish been? How have the fish been responding? Is there been a lot of people around? We have to move around and cover water. If you're not familiar with this area, you have Mosquito Lagoon to the north, and then in the middle and the west, if you will, is the Indian River. And then south of the Mosquito Lagoon is the Banana River. And the Banana River and the Indian River are parallel. And eventually the Banana River will intersect into the Indian River. But it's a lot of water and there's a lot of places to go and bounce around. And for us as kids growing up, we had a lot of opportunity to explore a lot of different places from the river, the Indian River, the Banana River to the Mosquito Lagoon. How'd you get
Yep.
started, man? Was it like you and your dad, you and your grandpa? How'd you get into fishing?
Well, my dad, he exposed it to me as a very young age, and I fell in love with it. It became a passion. So now I'm trying to do it professionally as well as, obviously being a firefighter. Um, but yeah, and some of my best memories as a kid were out on the water and sight fishing redfish or learning to sight fish redfish. Just spending time on the water with my dad, and some of my best memories. I do them now with my son as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just filmed a video for FWC, and they're really wanting to drive home the idea, um, not really the idea, but just that fishing and families and going out on the water and creating memories is important. Every time I have
Absolutely.
parents on the boat with their kids, at the end of the trip, I always look them in the eyes and say, thank you. Thank you for taking your kids fishing. Thank you for spending time out in the outdoors. It's special. It's important. You learn different skills. You're not in front of a screen. You're doing something in nature. And man, that's important. Being in God's creation is it's invaluable. It's very, very, very important, especially for kids, man,
Absolutely.
especially for
Yeah.
kids.
Yep, I agree 100%. This younger generation, our kids, and the kids to come, they're going to be the new stewards of the environment and our estuaries. And I mean, it's not just here in Florida, but all over. So getting
Absolutely.
them out in the sun and the water and expose them to everything installs a love in them, hopefully for it, and they can kind of pick up where we left off.
I know we both have the passion and the desire for our kids to experience what we did as kids and growing up. And we're both, and I say this humbly, we're both passionate about fighting for our lagoon systems, passionate about seeing our grass be healthy, our water systems be healthy, water to be clear for grass to grow. And I know you would say this, that you would want this system, the fishing, the estuary to be as good as when we were kids. And I know your heart is also, because this is how I feel. I want it to be better. I want it to be better for my kids than what we had it growing up. We had it pretty good, man. We've seen definitely a big
Pretty good, yeah.
decline the last few years, but I
Yeah.
know with a lot of effort and resistance to the dumping. So what's going on, if you guys aren't familiar, in the East Central Florida area, there's been over the last several years algae blooms that have been fed by sewage dumps. It's no secret. It's, we were pre-fishing this tournament the other day, which I'm excited to talk about. But we were running across the water. And we both had that whiff of, man, it smells like they're dumping again. Now, I didn't see any reports, but we both had the same thought of what's getting put into our system now. And thankfully, with some big pushes from constituents, from people, from anglers, from restaurant owners, from tourism companies, there's been a lot from our local governments, our federal governments, our state government have really been putting pressure on, let's stop the dumping going into our systems. Let's get rid of the sewage going into our waterways, because that is feeding an algae, which is hurting our grass. Thankfully, our water system our water's like a lot better. We're getting grass, which played into us finding fish, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. A little bit more about Zach before we dive into the tournament. Zach is also a firefighter, and on Saturday night when we were at the tournament party, there was a cruise ship. The party was in Port Canaveral, and so it's a big cruise terminal. And there's this brand new boat coming out, and Zach, super chill, was like, "Oh yeah, that's my boat. I run that boat." And I'm like, what? Like, that's really cool, man. And it's a big boat. And it's putting on a parade for this brand new cruise ship going out, and it's shooting out water. And my kids are there, and my 5-year-old is like, he's all into firefighters, he's all into service, he's all into, like, he wants to be a Blue Angels, he wants to be a firefighter, he wants to be a captain, he wants to be on the water. Like, the kid's got all these goals and aspirations. I freaking love it. But he sees this boat and he's like, this is insane. And Zach's like, oh yeah, man. Like, I run that boat. And he hops on the phone and makes a phone call to the guy running the boat, one of his coworkers, like, hey, man, come back. And they came back and put on a show, and we're shooting off water and doing these maneuvers and spinning the boat around. It was just really, really cool. So thank you for doing that. Tell me about the firefighting side and being on the water.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, so I work for Canal Fire Rescue. Been there about 7 years now, 10 years if you include my volunteer time. But I'm fortunate enough to be one of the few in the department who's called a Tier 1 operator, so meaning we can operate the fire vessels. We have two. We have a 39-foot vessel, then a 75-foot vessel, which is the one that your son got to see and doing a dog and pony show. But every time a cruise ship's going on its maiden voyage, a new cruise ship, we always kind of escort them out of the port and spray water and run the sirens and lights and stuff, and kind of send them on the way with a good goodbye or good luck kind of message, if you will.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. How often does that happen?
Well, the escorts happen probably once or twice a month, I'd say. Not always for new boats, but we do a lot. We do a lot of things. Congressmen come down and we'll escort them in the fireboat around the port, stuff so they can kind of
Hmm.
see what we got going on in the port. And we have a lot of cruise ships are LNG fuel, so that's which was the main reason why we were able to get the vessel that we have is
Hmm.
for LNG fuelings. So we do standbys for those. And it's just kind of a monitoring standby. If anything does go wrong during the fueling, we're there, ready to go, kind of thing. But that was the
That's
biggest
awesome.
reason why we're able to get that vessel. Yeah,
Is there a fishing rod in it?
I cannot confirm or deny that. Maybe there may
Good,
not be.
good answer, man. I tell you, I don't spend enough time inside of Port Canaveral, but there is a lot of places to go in there and fish and explore. There's when we were there at the captain's party, there was a SpaceX rocket that was on a barge that got picked up out in the ocean. Just some really cool stuff. Submarines coming in and out of there. There's a lot of cool stuff going on there. It's a very fun area here on the Space Coast. I was tournament prepping and a rocket went off, and I get to see these rockets go off from the water all the time. It's very cool to experience, especially for my anglers who are from some random place that have never seen the ocean. Sometimes they've never seen the rockets go off, and so for that to happen it's just a very cool place to call home and to
Absolutely.
guide. Um, we got 2 minutes left on the segment. We're going to transition into the RCI tournament. So let's talk about what exactly is the tournament, who RCI is, and then with the last couple segments of the show, we'll definitely dive into what we did for our success in the tournament. The RCI tournament, RCI is a sunglass company based here on the Space Coast in Cocoa Beach. What I love about them is they're passionate about fishing and passionate about the areas that they grew up fishing, the areas that we grew up fishing. Their lenses, or their frames, excuse me, are named after places that we fish: the power plant, the lagoon, Tiger Shoals, Ulame, like all these different spots that I grew up fishing. This is where they grew up fishing, is the name of their frames, which I think is very cool. It's an invitational tournament. There's a fly and spin division. Of course, we fished the fly because we like a hard time. So we went after the fly side. And then it's also a slam tournament. An inshore slam is 3 species. And depending on your region, it could be 3 different species. But here in East Central Florida, our big 3 would be snook, redfish, and speckled sea trout. If you're on a charter with me and we catch a drum or a tarpon in that mix, it could be any variety of those 4 or 5 you can get, your grand slam, your slam. But for this specific tournament, it was 3: redfish, speckled sea trout, and snook. So we had a plan to go out, and our number one goal, and we got 30 seconds before this segment's over. Our number one goal was to catch all 3, because going into the tournament, we knew from past experiences, Zach had fished this tournament several times in the past, that, hey, if we can get all 3 species, it's going to bump us ahead. So that was our first goal. Having goals and having a game plan is your number one start for being successful in tournaments. We've got more to talk about. I got Captain Zach Lewis from Amplifly Charters here in East Central Florida. This is the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. Don't go anywhere. We got so much more to talk about when we get right back from these breaks.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. I got Captain Zach Lewis from Amplifly Charters here on the Space Coast with me today. Before we continue, you already know I want to invite you to follow along on all of the adventures at the Captain's Log TV on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. On the YouTube side, you can see all of our episodes. We've done 60 episodes already, 5 years of the Captain's Log TV, which is crazy. And of course, there's all of our how-tos, all of our tackle box tips there. You can listen to all the radio shows there, as well as Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts. And I want to connect with you. I want to see what you're doing. I want to see what you're catching. I want to know about your adventures. And the best way for me to do that is connecting with you on social media at the Captain's Log TV on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. All right. You ready for this, man? Let's talk about our game plan. We already said that our first goal was to catch all 3 species. And it worked out. It played out into our advantage, because one of the rules was if you catch 2 of the 3, it doesn't count. Okay? Your inches don't matter anymore. This was a CPR tournament, meaning catch, photo, release. We had a measuring paper stick thing. I don't know what you'd call it, but a measuring device, a token, and you'd have to, with the fly division, pull out your phone and videotape the angler, fighting the fish or reeling in the fish, getting the fish to the boat. And then you had to have a picture of the fish on top of that measuring tape, as well as the token. So that way it showcased. And I don't know, we did it. I think I heard someone say you had to have a picture of the fly in the fish's mouth. So I tried to do that too. I wasn't sure, but better to be safe
Yeah.
than sorry. But that was our first goal, is get all three species. And then from there, try to upgrade fish. I had I had snook and trout dialed. I knew where they were going to be, but I was struggling with redfish. Now, not that I don't know where redfish are or I don't know how to catch them, but the fish that I have been finding have been just extremely spooky. And that's difficult. Like fish, when you pick up your rod, they take off. Before you even cast to them, they're taking off. Is that something you've noticed in the lagoon systems?
Oh, absolutely. Doesn't matter where you go for the most part. I mean, the fish here are just, they're overpressured, overfished, boat traffic. I mean, you name it, we've got it here. And of course, the grass isn't the best. So you have a lot of areas that are kind of, they don't have any grass, so they don't have places to stage, and so they feel already kind of insecure. They have all the boat traffic and all the different anglers and stuff. So we definitely have some difficult fish here at times to
Mhm.
catch.
Yeah. So part of that is another one of our game plans, pre-fish. Look for fish. I recently did a tackle box tip about this where when you're prepping for a tournament, you're out scouting, you're out pre-fishing. I say pre-fishing loosely. You don't want to be actually fishing, but instead looking. Think about that. You're out putting pressure on fish that you're trying to catch in a couple of days. Instead, it's let's just go and watch. Let's not even cast at them. We will figure out what they want to eat the day of the tournament. I guarantee you we can do that. We spend enough time on the water to be able to figure that out. But let's go find where they're sitting. Let's not disrupt them. Let's just go pay attention. And not Nick. Nick's a good friend of ours, mutual friend of ours. Zach called me, goes, I got redfish. And I was like, oh, I'm like, give me the details. And he's like, I got redfish. I found happy fish. And I think your exact words were, they're not pressured, which was
So
surprising. For our area, that's surprising. How did you find these fish? What made you go to this specific area? I ain't saying what it is. I want nobody to know what it
yeah.
is.
Um, Honestly, it was that the particular wind direction that day, and I used to fish this area when I was a kid a lot. I had great days there when I was younger, but just hadn't been there in a few years, and didn't know what the grass was looking like or what the water height was, and figured I'd go there and check, and lo and behold, I found a lot of happy fish, found great water, found great vegetation, bait. There's everything you need to have a good fishing day was there. So yeah, you had the
Yeah,
bait, you had relatively clean water. Then of course you had the structure and the grass and stuff that's going to hold your food, and as well as provide areas for the fish to hide and stuff like that as well.
yeah. And our water right now is so low. We are so in desperate need of rain, and that's playing a role on where we find fish as well.
Sure, yeah.
This with it being shallow, this time of year, typically I'm fishing shorelines. I'm looking for snook around structure. I'm finding fish when you're missing grass. Having mangroves is a place for these fish to go and hide. It's a place for bait fish to go and hide. It's a place for you to find fish. And so having areas with low waters, like, well, they can't get to the mangroves. Where are they going to go? Where are there mangroves maybe they can get to? Where is there grass? Where is there broken bottom? Where is there potholes? These are things that
Yeah.
we were talking about discussing and just kind of racking our brain. But you said something. You said you went to somewhere you hadn't fished in a while because um, of the wind direction. Well, let's go check. Mentally, you have a captain's log, and mentally you have this where have I been in the past? Where can I go and replicate success? Where have I found fish before with these same conditions? And that's where I stress using the FishBrain app and writing down all of your notes into a digital copy, but also I use my phone for photos and I reference photos. I look at what I've done in the past based off of different months. I go back to my handwritten captain's log and go, man, it was April 3 years ago, similar conditions, similar moon, water was low. This is what I did for success. So having somewhere where you write down that you can go back and check is huge, huge. And whether you do that digitally with the
Absolutely.
Fishbrain app, or you write notes in your phone, or you write it on paper, that is huge. And that was, dude, you nailed it. I was struggling on finding happy redfish, and you found them, and that was huge for our success.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sure was.
The other part of our game plan was get there early. Now dude, this was on me. I wasn't sleeping great that night. I was thinking about the tournament. I got up at like 3 in the morning. We had decided to push away. I wanted to meet you at the dock at 4:45. Lines in. So another rule for the tournament was lines in at 6 a.m. And last weekend, the lines in at 6 a.m., it was still fairly dark at 6, which caused, when you're casting a fly rod, you're throwing a fly at mangroves, at structure in the dark, that can be a bit daunting. You did great. Had you up on the
Oh, thank you.
bow. You made some great casts in the dark. And as the sun came up, we were able to see better. Obviously, we got that first, I think about 6:05, 6:07. There was enough light to really make better, more accurate casts. But we got on the water at 4:45. We made it to our first spot. I think it was 5 a.m. and an hour before. And I was nervous. Not nervous in a bad way. I was concerned that somebody was going to be there. What were you thinking? Were you feeling that same way?
Yeah, I mean, especially with people nowadays. I don't mean that in a negative way, but um, yeah, it's always a concern. But you always got to have backup areas so that if that happened, we could have gone someplace else, But it's definitely a concern, especially when it comes to a tournament. Now, granted, this tournament's meant to be fun, but we're both pretty competitive guys.
Competitive.
Yeah, we're doing it to win. We're not just doing it to have fun. We're going to try to win and have fun at the same time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, people and boat traffic in general is always a concern. But to avoid that, just have backup areas and have other game plans set in place.
Well, one of my favorite things, and we're almost there. As we get closer to summer, my day starts really early. And one of my favorite things is running across the river early mornings in the dark. We actually saw there was bioluminescence when we running across the river. We got to the spot and there's bio. And it's kind of early. The water's still a little cool for that. But as it warms up, our bioluminescence takes off and you're running across the river. It's dead quiet, it's dead calm, no one's around. It's just you and nature and the water, and I absolutely love it. So we got there an hour before we could cast, and we're hearing the birds wake up. We're hearing the whippoorwills or whatever. What was your favorite bird that we were listening to?
Whippoorwills, yeah.
Yeah, we're just whistling and making noise and uh, seeing the heron start creeping out on the flat and getting real crouched down and just real still and trying to steal some mullet. And then hearing the mullet start popping and there and flickering and making noise. And it's like, okay, okay. And we heard a couple of snook busting. I was like, all right, they're in there.
Yeah.
They're ready to eat. And so our first spot was, my thought was, we have to be there early because I don't want anybody to beat us. When we get to our spot, and again, I'm going to be very specific about not saying where we were, um, but I got a phone call. And I put it on speakerphone and I thought, okay, this is another competitor. He's a friend of mine. Is something wrong? Was my first thought. And so I answered, I said, good morning. And he goes, hey man, is that you in front of me? And I got sick to my stomach. I was like, wait a minute. This is a very specific spot. This is a very tight spot. And if there's a boat already in there and they got there before us, before 5 o'clock, and I didn't know it, and now we're pulling in, getting closer, now they're seeing us, I'm gonna be really, really heartbroken. I was like, flash your nav lights, man. And he's like, all right, I'm flashing them. I'm like, nope, that's not me. Praise God, go somewhere else. So kind of that anxiety, that sickness quickly went away. And I was like, all right, we got 30 seconds. I'm staring at my phone, watching it get closer and closer. And we started to fish 6 o'clock. Hey, we got more to dive to. We just got started for the tournament stuff. I've got Captain Zach Lewis from Amplifly Charters with me. Don't go anywhere. Captain Jonathan Moss is the Captain's Log Radio right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. We will be right back.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. Got Captain Zach Lewis with me from Amplifly Charters here on the Space Coast. We're talking the RCI Invitational Tournament and what we did. So we're on the water. It's 6 o'clock. It's dark, and we're beginning our day casting flies. And I had a game plan. And I was, it's always interesting when you're fishing with somebody else, and we're friends. So we're both easygoing, but we're both competitive. And I knew at this specific spot, if we threw a gurgler, we were going to catch a snook. I was confident. Like I was dead set. I knew there was snook in this spot. I knew there was some big snook in this spot, and I knew that they would blow up a gurgler. And so we start our day throwing a black and purple gurgler and bloop, making that bloop sound. Gurgler's like a popper, if you're not familiar. And you're getting it as tight as you can to the mangroves. And you're just waiting for these fish to erupt. Now, if the sun was brighter, you'd be able to see them kind of boil up on it. But because it was so dark, it's really a paying attention deal and listening and feeling. Talk me through that, man. How did it feel to be on the bow there, making those casts towards the mangroves? And what's the anticipation there?
Well, making the cast in the dark at mangroves by itself is pretty challenging if you don't want to get, tangled up into mangroves, obviously. So a lot of that was just kind of hoping for the best, and just kind of feeling the line that you have out and make sure you're not overcasting or undercasting because you want to get pretty tight. But the anticipation's always great when low light situations, because you can't see, like you said, you can't really see a gurgler. You can kind of see it, but you're not going to see the fish coming out to it. You're just going to hear the blow up, then all of a sudden you're going to feel them on there, which was absolutely the case for us.
Yeah, we got hooked up pretty fast. And that was my expectation, that we were going to catch one pretty quick. I wanted one like the one over my shoulder that was 40 inches, but we didn't get one of them big girls to eat. Our first snook was, I don't know, 13, 14 inches. So a good fish
14,
to get us started, but not the size we needed. We kept going. We made that same we did that same stretch 4 times. Every time we went through, we got bit except for the last time. The second time, you hooked up to a better fish. And we talk about being around structure. Mangroves have barnacles. These fish call the mangroves home. And what ends up happening is these fish come out of the mangroves, and you said it a second ago. The key is to get that fly as tight as possible. Okay. You want to get it as close to the mangroves as you can. The reason being is that's the zone. That's where they're at. That's where they're laid up. That's where they live. That's where they're wanting to ambush and destroy a bait. And so you get your fly close and you bloop and you give it a pause. You bloop, you pop it, you make that noise and let it pause. And they pull out of those mangroves and they blow it up. But for our second fish, what ended up happening? That fish grabbed it and went straight back in the mangroves because that's home, that's safety. Tell me about that. We had a little bit of frustration on that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just part of the game when you're fishing structure, and especially when you have a fly rod. You don't have a whole lot of stopping power, and not when something's less than a foot away from the mangrove when it eats. It really, if
Yep.
it chooses to go on there, you're not going to stop it, unfortunately. And that's exactly what happened. It was right on the very outside of the mangroves, came up and ate, set the hook, and it immediately turned and put its head
Went
right, I'm sure, right
bananas.
into some barnacles, and boom, it's gone, which,
Pops you off.
yeah, part of the game, unfortunately, but what can you do?
So our the idea is just to keep fishing with that low light so we can get snook to eat. And our game plan was so far was working. We had the fish we needed. Obviously, we're looking for an upgrade. Then you made a cast, and we had a huge eruption, but it wasn't a snook. It wasn't a redfish. It wasn't a trout. It was like a 6 foot alligator. You remember that, bro?
Yeah.
That thing came flying out of the mangroves trying to get
Mhm.
that gurgler. It surprised me. Now there's alligators in our lagoon systems. It is salt water. I've had people argue that with me, and so my response is always stick your face in and drink it. And then they're like, okay, you're right, it's salty. But having that gator just come after you was hilarious, was awesome. But we kept fishing. We had a few more little heartbreak moments in there, and then the time was like, okay, it's getting bright. We got to get out of here. We've got our snook, we've got our number one, we've got to go looking for number two. Uh, and in that same zone, I knew that we could find some trout. We ended up grabbing a trout quickly. I think I was like, dude, we got to get, and you're reeling in, you're stripping in your line real fast, and that trout
Yeah.
smoked
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, I was just putting the line back on the reel. I wasn't even fishing. I was just reeling it in to get up and run. And it was a small trout, but again, it's number two on the list. Now we got one more. After that, we're gonna
Yeah,
start upgrading, getting some bigger fish, or at least looking for some bigger fish.
yeah.
And yeah,
So we left there and we went to our next spot, which was our trout spot. Um, because I think what happened, I think this was my mistake. I wanted to fish that zone one more time because I knew we could pull out a bigger snook. I knew they were there, and they were there. But that fourth go about it, I think, was just one too many. I think they were well aware of us because we had already hooked 3 fish, landed one. That the sun was higher. We're in a foot of water, and it's pretty clear. It's getting bright. They can see us. So that fourth one was, man, a Hail Mary throw, trying to get it to the end zone, but I think it was a little too late, which ended up putting us at our trout spot, I think a little too late. Again, another zone where if we can throw a gurgler, ton of grass, ton of broken bottom, ton of bait, and maybe looking back, maybe we shouldn't have thrown the gurgler at that second spot. Maybe we should have gone with something subsurface.
yeah, we can always look back at it and say shoulda, coulda kind of thing. But
Yeah,
it's a combination, I'm sure, and time of day, and maybe not the right fly, or just the fish just weren't having it that day. So,
yeah.
but it worked out either way.
But we found them. We found
We
this.
did.
There was a bunch of big trout. We were blowing
Yeah.
out some big trout. The Calcutta was, if you're not familiar with the Calcutta, that means you can, for a lot of these tournaments, you can put in a side pot, meaning it was $25 or $50, whatever it was, $40 a team, and you're trying to catch the biggest fish for that particular species. And for this one, it was a trout Calcutta. So whoever catches the biggest trout wins the whole pot. That wins all the cash that people have put in for that. And we saw fish in there that were in the 20 to 26-inch range. That would have been perfect for our tournament and perfect for the Calcutta. But again, I think we got there too late. But we were feeling good because we had 2 of our 3 species. In comes our redfish. Um, we have for the redfish spot, we needed light. Sunlight is crucial in inshore fishing for sight fishing. Okay. You can obviously go and fish in the dark. You can fish in low light. You can catch fish blind casting, but we were looking for a specific redfish. And Zach had it dialed where these fish were going to be at a certain spot at a certain time with a certain light. And because we got to the trout spot too late, well, we went and hit another spot, which wasn't part of our game plan. And that was some advice I got from Captain Stephen Fluke Jr. from up at Unashamed Charters in South Carolina. He was telling me the day before, he's like, "Do you have a game plan?" I said, "Yeah, we have a game plan." He goes, "Stick to it. Don't waver. Stick to it." But we kind of wavered there. We went to a spot that I knew would have some fish. I just didn't know how they would behave. And there was some redfish there. But how do they behave? They wanted nothing to do with us.
Very spooky. Yeah, very picky. Just sitting on stand, not wanting anything to do with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I looked at Zach. I was like, okay, you got it figured out. You know where to go. You get into the driver's seat. I'm going to eat half a sandwich. Take us where we need to go. And honestly, dude, I thought for a second that was the biggest mistake for me for the day was let's go and check that spot, because as soon as we got there, my heart was saying somebody's going to beat us. Somebody's going to beat us to where we need to go. And in the world of inshore fishing, you want to give people space. At least that is the courteous thing to do, is to give people space. Yes. And what happened? We got to that redfish spot. What happened?
There's somebody already there. But granted, he wasn't exactly where we wanted to go, thankfully. But no, he was in the general area, but luckily he was far enough away than where I knew the fish were, at least the day before, where I wanted to go to, and we were able to kind of keep 400 or 500 yards in between us. So we gave him plenty of room. We crept in there real slow. We were respectful, the same thing we'd want back done to us, and we're able to get in there and make it happen.
And what ended up happening was we were on fish and the guy was on fish. And we were far enough apart where we weren't disrupting him. He wasn't disrupting us. We came in really quiet. We came in really as stealthy as we possibly could so that we could get to where the fish were and not disrupt him and his fishing. And honestly, dude, the guy didn't move. He fished hard in that zone, so he must have been on fish. I didn't see him catch any fish, but we were kind of focused on the fish we were going after. But that worked out in our favor, being in a zone that had unspooky redfish. And you were able to, you dropped dimes, dude. You had a fish come up on us. We talked about this before, where, having accuracy and distance is huge in fly fishing, but also the short game.
Well, when we first got there, as soon as you got on the platform, I got up on the bow. I looked down, and there was a redfish nose down into the grass, and made a little flip cast to it. And he was maybe 15 feet from the boat. And I don't know if he ate the back of the fly or if I just messed up and pulled the fly, but either way, missed that opportunity. And that 2 seconds later, I looked right to the left, and there was another one coming right at us, same distance, 10, 15 feet away. Just did one false cast and dropped it right back down, and that fish acted completely different. It hammered it right off the bat, kind of like how they used to back when we were both younger and fishing Mosquito Lagoon.
Well, hey, when we get back, we're going to talk more about our tournament, how the results ended up here on the Captain's Log Radio. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio. Captain Jonathan Moss. We got rudely interrupted by the break. Of course, I got Captain Zach Lewis with me. We were rolled up to this final spot, not our final spot, but our redfish spot. We had somebody kind of there. We creeped up real slow. They stayed in their zone. We stayed in our zone. We kept plenty of space, and Zach was able to catch our redfish, our third species. And that was our biggest goal. We have to catch all three species. If we don't catch all three species, it's going to put us out of contention. One of the rules for the tournament was you have to catch all three species. Doesn't matter if you catch a 45-inch redfish and a 45-inch snook, giant fish, and you show up without a trout, it doesn't count. All three species is the key for this slam tournament. And now our
Absolutely.
goal is, okay, we've got all three. We've got all three species. We need to start checking other areas. We need to start thinking about, how can we upgrade? And so we made a move for that redfish spot. We made a move, and honestly, I'm being honest. I had a couple of shots that I probably could have done better on. I got excited. I made some crappy casts, missed some shots. Caught a black drum on fly, which was awesome. One was a big black drum that had some real
It
pronounced
was.
stripes.
Yeah.
I wanted a picture, but Zach quickly unbuttoned it and let it go before I had opportunity. Thanks a lot for that. But we left there, and I said, there's a zone I want to go to that again, like just like you found the redfish spot. There's a zone I want to go to that historically, when I reviewed my captain's log, when I mentally went through my notes, when I thought about where have I punched in fish on my Fish Brain app, where can I find fish? And I'm thinking, okay, I know a spot. My concern is there enough water? And we rolled up to this spot, and there's a culvert pipe there. And I like culvert pipes. Culvert pipes, when they're moving, that's a key in our area, especially after hurricanes. You get a lot of water coming in, and it starts creating a water flow. Water's pushing
Mhm.
through. When you have that current, what happens, Zach?
Oh, fish congregate and then you can have a great day. A lot of people don't know this, but our local estuaries here, they don't really have a tidal flow. And if they do
Right.
flow at all, it's very, very small. So typically our water movements runoff, basically, So it's going to be after hurricanes or after some type of major rainstorm. Then we'll have a little bit of movement coming through those culvert pipes and coming out of creeks and stuff like that. And you're going to have fish congregate on the outside of that. And yeah, it wasn't really the case this particular instance, but it was still holding fish, just being a culvert pipe in itself.
Had a fish on it, had a fish that we needed on it. And I threw over that spot two or three times, and then all of a sudden, bam, I got slammed, and it was an upgrade on our snook. And we both saw that fish jump out of the water, and I was hollering, you were hollering, you're hopping from the platform, like, get the net, get the net. And then I had a heart attack. The fly line, I swear, fly line will find any and everything to grab onto and hook onto. And it wrapped around my trolling motor. And this fish is taken off and my line's tight. And I'm in my brain, I'm going, this fish is going to pop off. Like he ate that fly. I think it was what did we have, 15-pound tippet or 20-pound? I don't know. It was light. And it's not, I would want to go heavier for snook, but there was rules for the tournament on what you could have, and that fish grabbed a hold of that fly, and that line got tight, and I'm trying to unravel it as fast as I could, and thankfully, praise God, it came off. I got it off the trolling motor, and we never lost the fish. And that was a 10-inch upgrade for us for snook.
Huge. Yeah.
That was a lot of points. So now we're high-fiving. We're stoked. We're excited. It's like, okay, what's next? So we ran and hit a couple other areas. I had a spot that I found redfish on the day before, and they weren't there. I was frustrated. We saw some black drum there. We saw some snook there, saw some trout there. Didn't see a single redfish, even though the day before I found a bunch of reds there and they weren't there. So I was frustrated with that, but we still had time. We made another run to where we started, and Zach he caught all the fish. Other than that snook, he caught all the fish, and he was able to upgrade us again on the trout. Tell me about that.
Oh, we circled back around again, like where we knew fish were going to be, and it's actually the same area we were fishing that morning. But there's a little deeper, some deeper troughs in there. We kind of figured later in the day, trout are gonna kind of congregate in that deeper trough, and sure enough, they did. And we got lucky and were able to upgrade a few inches on our trout. And we had caught at least probably 2 dozen trout altogether.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not all of them had the size that we needed, but we're able to still upgrade. And in this tournament, every inch counts. So any 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 fish that's a little bit longer than what you got in the books right now is always going to help you out.
Oh, 100%. 100%. We got off the water, excited. Had a roller coaster of a day,
Yeah,
starting off 6 o'clock in the morning, or really starting off at 4:45 in the morning, running across the river, getting to our spot, waiting it out, finding our fish, catching fish, losing fish, breaking off fish, then running to the next spot, and again finding fish, putting fish in the boat, getting pumped, getting really pumped, then having an upgrade, then running to a spot. It's like, dang it, they're not here. Then running to another spot and getting the upgrade again. It's Tournament fishing is a roller coaster of emotions. You are really excited, you're really anxious, you're really nervous, you're really just and all we're at the same time we're trying to have fun. This isn't a
yeah.
money tournament. This is a bragging rights tournament. This is let's get together. Vince from Skinny Water at the captain's meeting on Friday night said something, and I talked about this in the tackle box tip. He says something really huge. He's like, everyone in this room can fish.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everyone in this room can outfish everyone else in this room, you know. So go out there and just have fun and chill. But like we've said a few times, we're both competitive. We were in it to win, we're in it to do
Yeah.
good. With the fly division, there was not a first, second, third. It was just a first place only, winner takes all. On the spin division, there was a first, second, third. And man, we're gonna need to talk to Troy and Tony and be like, yo, guys, you need to change this up. You need to do a first, second, third. It's more trophies they gotta buy, but you gotta get a first, second, third for fly. But it's all based off of inches. And we ended up placing in third place. We got third place in the fly tournament.
Yeah, I feel like we did pretty solid. I had a great fishing day in general. We didn't have the inches we needed to get that first place spot, but still a great day. And either way, it's for a great cause. Honestly, our tournament always benefits some type of local, say, organization that benefits the estuaries. And this particular year, it was the Indian River Clam Restoration that's spearheaded by Blair Wiggins. But I think we raised $30,000 to $40,000 somewhere. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a substantial amount of money, and all that got
That's awesome.
donated to the clam restoration project. So either way, it's a fun tournament. You meet great people. You meet a lot of people that are in the industry. Then, of course, it benefits our local waters.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not familiar with clams, clams are just like oysters in the sense that they are filter feeders. But unlike oysters, clams do not need water flow. And Zach had talked about that earlier, how we don't have a tide here really at all. Water movement is based on wind. Water levels are based on rain and evaporation, and wind will actually push water in or out of our estuary. Um, and that's pretty much it in terms of water movement. So for oysters, they just don't survive. They don't thrive. They don't want to be in this kind of habitat. Clams, however, do. They love it. And years ago, we had a thriving clam population, and it got, fished out. Our what's the word I'm looking for? Commercial. That's it. The commercial clammers took the clams, too many of them. And then next thing you know, they're all out of jobs because all the clams are gone. So now the efforts are let's get clams back into our estuaries, let them help filter that water. And so to be a part of something like this, where not only are we having a great day, we're being competitive, we're going finding fish and catching fish, we're also able to help with the estuary and this clam restoration project, which is really, really cool. Really love that, man.
Yeah.
If people wanted to book you, Zach, how can they find you? Because listen, we had a great day. We had fun fishing, but we love putting people on fish. Zach is a great
Yeah.
guide. Zach is good at finding fish. He's great at tying flies and presenting to them, and he's great at helping anglers figure out how to cast better and to present to fish. If people want to find you, how do they find you to go fishing with you?
Well, I have a website. It's www.ampliflycharters.com. So they can always reach out to me on there and book me through that, or they can give me a call or text anytime on my cell phone as well.
What's your number?
Yeah. 321-749-5066.
And do you do just fly or do you fly and spin?
No, I do fly and spin. I prefer to do fly. It's my passion. It's been my passion since I was a kid. And kind of like what you said, I love seeing people that haven't caught a redfish before or haven't caught any saltwater species on fly. Then I happen to be the guy who puts them in front of a fish, so to speak, and catch their first fish on fly. It's a great feeling, and so I definitely enjoy that. But I do spin as well. I'll do all sight fishing, artificial fishing if I'm doing spin.
And how many people can you take at one time?
I can take up to 2 people one time comfortably.
Comfortably too. Do you ever run trips with 3?
No, usually not professionally. No,
Okay. That's when you call me like, hey, I can't do this.
that's right.
Good job, man. I love it, man. Absolutely love it. Well, yeah, if you're ever interested in going fishing, we can get you on fish. It's such a unique estuary. It's a very diverse estuary. The Indian River Lagoon system, it's huge. It runs, and we talked about that before, where if there's a lot of pressure in a certain area, we can bounce around and find fish. We might have to make a little bit of a run, but there's so much water for us to go and find fish. We're very blessed, my friend, to be able to fish and grow up in this area. The Indian River Lagoon system is very special to both of us. And we're also very blessed to have wives who support us and let us go chase our dreams, like running boats that are 75 feet long with really cool hoses, and then running boats that are 18 feet long chasing little fish. But listen, dude, great having you here on the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss at Captain Zach Lewis for Amplifly Charters. Make sure you are subscribed on all of the socials. Be safe out there and catch the fish. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.